Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said he would not rule out the option of compulsory vaccinations, saying campaigners against jabs have blood on their hands. Last week, UNICEF released figures showing that more than 500,000 children in the UK went unvaccinated against measles between 2010 and 2017. Matt Hancock has blamed anti-vaccine messages on social media for encouraging scepticism among parents. This is a problem across Europe, where Italy and France have introduced compulsory vaccination. Matt Hancock is right to be harsh against the selfish and unscientific ignorance of anti-vaxxers. They increase the risk for all children. But, and this is a capital but, I cannot accept compulsory vaccination. Instead, Germany's example should be pursued. Fine parents all you like, but granting the state so much power that it can inject us with substances against our wishes is taking public health one Orwellian step too far. History doesn't need to remind us why the Germans chose not to go down this route.
Maajid, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a parent, but I sympathise with parents, and I understand the ones that are sceptical of vaccinations. But the problem is there is no proof. You know, a lot of people are scared because they think it causes autism and so on, but there's no proof of that. And actually, when you look at what's happening, particularly in America, where the sort of lovey mummies are not vaccinating their kids, it's causing a mini epidemic in areas like Brooklyn and, you know, Fountain Heights and so on. And I think that actually, I kind of agree with Matt Hancock. I don't think we can allow this to go unchecked. Can I just bring in some stats? So if we look at when vaccines were introduced in 1963, measles killed around 2.6 million people a year. And approximately 110,000 people died from measles in 2017, and they were mostly children under the age of 5. And if you sort of add that figure up over that period of time, these vaccines have saved approximately around 20 million people. I don't know how we say we can't do something about
I'm not disputing the extent of the problem, and it's why I think the conspiracy theorist anti-vaxxers are, as I said, unscientific, selfish and ignorant. But it is important to note that what you just mentioned there about the epidemic in America is in Brooklyn, in particular among Orthodox Jewish communities, and that's why it's so important.
And also the lovey mummies too.
Yes, but in Brooklyn, in New York, that you refer to, it's Orthodox Jewish communities for religious reasons aren't getting vaccinations or whatever their reasons are. So it's important to put that into the context of compulsory state vaccination, and the Nuremberg trials referred to this because, of course, Nazis were engaged in this, and not least against Jewish communities. And it's just, imagine how scared certain communities would be if we reintroduced that,
in the 60s against African Americans.
Yeah.
I totally understand where you're going.
Can I just read from that? From the Nuremberg trials, it says the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. Others, Nick?
Well, I've got the solution.
What is it?
It doesn't happen often, and I'm terribly sorry, Maajid, because when I now unveil the solution, it will be the end of your conversation. And just before I unveil my solution, I think you're slightly cross purposes because you don't like the idea of Germany fining.
I do like the idea.
You do like the idea of Germany. So hang on a second. So it's all right. OK, so it's all right not to have your child vaccinated as long as you pay money. Either you want herd immunity or you don't. How come paying money makes it all right?
No, what I'm saying is, let's not use the state to force people to inject their children, but if they don't inject if they don't vaccinate their children, there should be penalty. There should be.
So it makes it all right to put your kid out and ruin herd immunity if you paid the state a few marks or euros.
I'm hoping that acts as a disincentive.
But anyway, I've got the solution anyway, so you needn't worry.
Go on.
I have been debating this on radio shows since the largely discredited research by Dr. Andrew Wakefield came out many, many years ago. And what mums and dads phoned up and told me then is what they tell me now, which is their concern is that the MMR, the 3 doses in one go, is too much. Now, scientifically, it's fine, everybody... But there is nothing more valuable than your child. Every parent round here knows.
So
you give a limb.
Separate them,
Separate them. Now, there is a cost to that, OK? But everybody I've ever said this to who's sane, you will always get the people who are concerned, said, why don't you do them over a period of a few months? There is a cost to that. so they just bear the cost.
I still suspect some conspiracy theorists will still object.
Well, you'll never get to them. You'll never get to them.
Yeah.
But I do hear a parent's valid concern.
Yeah.
Giving my kiddie the 3 shots plus a booster. If it's so great, why do we need a booster? If it's so brilliant, why would a drug need...
But can I bring you to...
Hold it. So we'll do... 1 week we'll do mumps, 1 week will be rubella, da-da-da-da. You've got to pay us 40 quid a shot. Every parent will do it. Who's up next? Who's talking next? Because I've solved this one.
Yeah. Can I... No, you haven't. Can I bring you to Matt Hancock's... Can I just very quickly... What do you think specifically of... June said she endorses it. Matt Hancock's suggestion.
Which is what?
The state... So in Italy and France, it has become compulsory.
You can't do that.
So you agree with me?
No, but this will allow people. This will cover Orthodox Jews and others. I've solved it.
Yes.
I might go and have a cup of tea out of that cup. Actually, that's right.
It's a coffee cup.
Yeah, off you go, Nick. First, I want to bring in a parent who I think it's really important. I agree basically with what you're saying, but I think it's important not to be dismissive of people's concerns about vaccinations, Maajid, and not to write it off as ignorance, because actually I've found that parents who are concerned often have done more research than those of us. I've vaccinated my daughter with all the standard vaccinations.
But she's fine, though, isn't she?
She's fine, but did I feel that there were health professionals who were willing to take the time to really talk me through the risks? You know, all parents want to make sure their child is safe. When you have a small child, you're very conscious of, you know, small children are very robust, but they're also fragile. And the idea of injecting your child with a quite large dose of vaccinations is quite scary to a lot of parents, and I can understand why parents are weary. I just want to show you, this is a woman called Lottie Daly who's explaining the anti-vaxxers perspective.
The Nuremberg Code, for example, states that we shouldn't have any medical procedure done to us without our implicit and consent. So therefore, forcing someone to vaccinate is wrong. I also think it's quite a totalitarian approach. And even if you don't believe in vaccination or you do believe in it, it shouldn't matter. It's about the freedom to choose what's right in an informed capacity.
I think that there are a lot of complicated reasons why people do not trust the state or medical professionals. One is religion, and I relate that to other conversations about sex education, where religious communities do not trust the state deciding what their children should have or what they should know. And I think it is important our children are vaccinated and that they have sex education, but I think you have to build trust.
Having a concern as a parent is very different to actively campaigning against MMR.
Yes, but my concern is that all this debate is about,
Michelle.
just before Michelle comes in, it's all about compulsion rather than about trying to build trust and understand why people are sceptical. And the idea that you force them to have it, or that you fine them heavily, or that you ban their children from school, I think it's completely the wrong approach. We need to be looking at the root causes of why this mistrust exists.
So I'm a big believer in prevention rather than cure, particularly in all of these days of strained NHS. I think anything we can do to prevent people from getting ill in the first place is good by me. So I'm in favour of vaccination. When it comes to mandatory versus almost motivation to do the choice yourself, it's really hard sometimes to motivate parents to do the right things. And in Australia, and I'll get criticised for saying this, but they have a no jab, no pay policy, which they expanded then to be no jab, no play, which I don't know if you know about, but what they've said there is if you don't vaccinate your children, they will stop you, if you're in receipt of various family benefits, they will stop you having access to those benefits. If you also don't vaccinate your children, when you put them into play centres, play areas, you have to prove, you have to give a certificate of vaccination, and if you don't, you won't be allowed to go into those play centres. And those initiatives have had a remarkable impact in terms of getting parents to vaccinate their children, because when I was looking at the religious reasons for not vaccinating, I found so many places that was dispelling that myth and actually saying that there's no religion in the land that truly dictates that you can't vaccinate. There might be arguments that say there's, I don't know, whether it's gelatin or whatever it is in some of these vaccines, but there's no true religious reasons. And for me, I believe in herd immunity. I do believe in immunisation being a group activity, and I think it's quite selfish and wrong for individual parents to put their desires over that group mentality and group wellness.